set? All right. Good evening. Looks like we have a quorum, so we'll get started. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from last month's meeting? Like a motion to approve the minutes? Second?
I'll second.
Okay.
We'll keep it moving.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Excused from today's meeting is Maria Walker, Dale Lingenfelter, Jim Vina, Aiden O'Connor, and Jim Stairs. Disciplinary action, DOH advised that as a result of an investigation, Christopher Jenkins, Hammondsport, New York, has his certification suspended for 3 months effective March 30th. The suspension is stayed. He was also placed on probation for 3 years effective March 30th of 2016 and assessed a civil penalty of $2,000. Of that amount, $1,500 is suspended, and he's allowed to recertify at the BLS level only for violations of Part 800.16. Joseph Snellagasti Oswego has had certification suspended for 1 year. The suspension is stayed for 3 years effective March 14th, and he was assessed a civil penalty of $2,000 for violations of Part 800.16. For correspondence, course application informational. It was a training for Western Turnpike, EMS Original, which starts on August 29th, 2016. Additional correspondence, letter from Greene County EMS Council advising that 2016 Remsco appointments, David Bettini, incumbent, Aiden O'Connor, incumbent, Stephen Mercado is replacing Patty McEnany, who resigned. Any questions? Report of committees. Tim?
Hopefully everybody has a copy of the report. There's a lot of bullets on there this month, but I'd like to touch on 4 of them. 2015 REMAC billing. There's only one outstanding billing as of today, so people are sending their checks in. The modems, modem upgrades. We received the shipment of the modems. The vast majority have been distributed. There's only 2 agencies that haven't come in to pick up them, and I'm working on those agencies. They should be picking up those modems this week. There's 1 or 2 agencies that may need additional modems, and as luck would have it, I have a couple extra in there because one agency who should have received a number of modems opted to purchase some Zoll units, which freed up a couple extra modems there. So if all works out, I'll be able to supply the agencies that were shortchanged with the initial order. Attended the EMS Memorial, and I wrote down good turnout. I thought it was pretty good turnout actually there. A lot of agencies, a lot of rigs, and actually a lot of dignitaries this month. Usually we see 3 or 4 politicians there speaking, but we had a full slate of people that wanted to talk and address the EMS crowd. Last but not least, and this goes back to credentialing and it goes back to some customer service. With some of the personnel changes and upgrades we made here, we put our heads together and tried to decide how we could extend or improve customer service here at Remo. And one of the ways Deb Cuffs came up to do that is to offer the credentialing as a basically traveling roadshow. She would take the credential exam to the agency that needed it, as opposed to having the agencies send their folks down here perhaps as an inconvenience to the provider, to the agency. Now, she's already done that with Mohawk, and I expect her to do that with some of the other agencies that expressed interest. In a nutshell, that's my report, unless anybody has any questions.
I think, Tim, the only thing that I would bounce off your report is for those agencies that are making choices to go outside of the existing transmission service, and to move to a new vendor for their monitors. I ask each one of them to be very careful to make sure that they can do that well, and do it within the existing system that currently is working for the physicians in each of the hospitals. We've had at least 1, if not 2, ST Elevation MI misses because people are doing things their own way rather than within the existing system. The Zoll product can transmit into the LifeNet receiving station, and it must be set up that way if you're gonna use a Zoll, so that the transmission is done the exact same way, because let's face it, you can't teach physicians different ways of doing things.
I discussed that with Jay from Gilliland, they are.
Yeah, good, good.
Treasury report, Peter?
Yep, we're still in a good position, over $398,000 in cash equivalents, over $600,000 in total assets. Last month, you heard me talk about the fact that in March, our investments did real well. Well, it came back to haunt me. We lost a couple $100 here in April. But anyway, and the only thing we have moving forward is accounts payable of $254.72.
Finance committee, Steve?
I have no report.
Dr. Daly?
You know, combining all of the reports, the most important thing that I can bring to you is the fact that tomorrow is the CMAC meeting. The collaborative protocols will be there for discussion and a vote. Gotta be honest with you, this has been a really dramatic process that started with a bunch of people around tables like this at 1653 a long time ago. And we are very, very close to having a single set of collaborative protocols that will go from Yonkers to Buffalo. We've talked about this an awful lot. Tomorrow's going to be the day. In terms of comments that we got from people along the way, we got great comments from folks right the way across all of those regions, which is great. A bunch of very, very pointed comments from this region as always, which helped make those protocols even better. I'm excited, really excited about them. The one thing we have to wait and see what happens as we start to discuss it, that some of you have already been a party to, is the idea of reducing patella dislocations in the field. It's something that's very safe to do. It's something that's very reasonable to do. It's something that's just plain good medicine. And I'll be fascinated to find out how this discussion goes tomorrow. Otherwise, I just received notice today that the Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement will actually be supportive of the protocols as they are currently written, which will include standing order fentanyl for kids. It'll include standing order ketamine for excited delirium. Basically what they said is we want to make sure that we're taking good care of the narcotics, to make sure that we're maintaining the integrity of the system, but we don't want to stand in the front of optimal patient care. So that's absolutely huge, and it will be an exciting meeting tomorrow. Already hit that. And I have one thing for new business when we get there.
Thank you, Dr. Daly. Steve, New York State EMS Council?
New York State EMS Council meets on Wednesday, so I have no report tonight, other than I'll have a report at our next meeting on what transpired at Wednesday's meeting.
Yvette was not able to make tonight's meeting, and the May meeting was canceled. She's gonna look at possibly a July meeting, so I'll report out at the next meeting if she's not able to come. MCI committee, Richard?
Ken Norton has agreed to be on the MCI committee with me, and we're also looking for other members. I would like to meet next month a half hour before the executive committee meeting, which at this point we don't know what time that's going to be, but stay tuned. If you look at your what Tim sends out prior to the next meeting, anybody that's interested, I would like to review our existing plan about a half hour before the executive meeting.
Then, membership committee, nominating committee, and awards committee.
Nothing on the awards, nothing on nominating. It's coming as a second in motion from the executive board for Dr. Jagoda to be reappointed. From Columbia County, P.J. Keeler is reappointed. Scott Bowman is taking Mike Green's spot, and an alternate will be named later. You read Greene County, Aiden O'Connor, Dave Bettini, Steve Brucato, and Sean Hoteling as an alternate. And Schenectady Chief Dale Lingerfeld, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. Yeah, he's been reappointed as well. Dale. I called him chief, he answered. So Steve, how do we do that? Coming as a second, so,
Just, discussion.
Any discussion? Questions? Take a vote. Is that the numbers?
Sign sheet.
Yep, I think you got it right.
That's the executive.
What are you looking for?
Sign the sheet. Right, let Steve have it.
Anne Marie,
Doesn't need to be a roll call.
all those in favor?
Okay, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, county reports. Albany County?
Nothing really, we, still waiting on the after-action report from the, active shooter, exercise that we did. The company dragging their feet a little bit with that, but, we already have, in works, everybody's still a bomb train exercise that, we'll be taking on, so, that'll be our next big project that'll have include fire EMS.
Columbia County?
Columbia County is continuing to evolve its county program. We just received our Medicare provider number. Only took us about a year or longer to get that. And we will be doing centralized billing, which will help us save about $20,000 to $25,000 a year. So we're moving towards that.
Thank you. Green County?
The Greene County Countywide Ambulance Task Force reconvened this month. The original plan of ALS transporting ambulances was pretty much summarily dismissed by the towns as they weren't interested. So we reconvened to come up with some new ideas, possibly keeping a fly car system with BLS ambulances, or starting a pilot program with just a few towns, and then expanding out to the rest of the county from there. So we'll see how that goes. That was our first meeting. We won't be meeting in June. We'll be convening again in July, and then hopefully taking it to the towns from there with some ideas.
Rensselaer County?
Remsco County, this past weekend hosted what they called the Rockin' Derby. It's a 3-day concert, pajama party. Surprisingly went very well, although there are still concerns in the way it was organized and how they could better do that maybe next year if they come back. Looking forward to Country Fest next month. And we too are still continuing to try to get the MCI or the active shooter trainings around the county.
Nate,
I think, sorry,
when you're done, can I talk?
go ahead.
May I just add to Amy's report that the summer EMT original and research classes in Rensselaer County will be at Schodack Valley Fire Department, and they start June 1st, test out August 15th. There's still a couple of spots, thanks to Del Mar for filling up the class. I've got 3 or 4 of you guys. So anyone's interested, let me know. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and what I was gonna say is that one of the things that I think we learned from the Rockin' Derby, or more accurately reiterated with the Rockin' Derby, is that Part 18 forms are collected by the Department of Health, and then nothing happens to them. I'm gonna explore over the next couple of weeks exactly what the best pathway for us to follow to make sure that a copy of every Part 18 that's filed in the Capital District ends up here, so people can get at it and Tim can review them and make sure that if there's something that's gonna be of particular concern to the region as a whole, that we can start to mobilize resources, and that a copy ends up in the hand of every emergency manager. Because each county emergency manager has a horse in this race. And if there's a Part 18 being filed in their county, they should know about it. they shouldn't have to explore it separately, they should be able to look down at that Part 18 and see. So unfortunately, the Part 18 plan process is a little bit antiquated. If you get 5,000 people there for the symphony, or 5,000 people there for an electronic dance music festival, the requirements are exactly the same. And we all know that there's probably a slight difference in the potential at each one of those things. So I'd like for a little bit more of this to actually potentially be operationalized rather than just memorialized, which is really what ends up happening most of these Part 18s.
If I may, we actually addressed that at the Hawk, and actually we're looking into the possibility of countywide legislation for that, because like you said, 5,000 people at a jazz festival is a lot different than maybe with a mosh pit.
You have not seen somebody mosh until they're moshing with a saxophone. But I think that the reality is, EJ, what we need to do is to prompt the state to do this on a broader basis. But the fact that the Hawk's already involved may actually prompt the state to recognize that there's a need to do this. So
And
that's
it
really
calls
good.
for 1 EMT for 5,000 people.
Well, that's a good EMT.
No, they're busy.
And it doesn't even call for roller skates for any EMT.
Thank you. Okay, Kevin is not here. I would like to just say that Saratoga Hospital is very close to our PCI program for STEMIs. We're looking at the end of June, hoping that we'll be able to go during that date. We will certainly communicate to everybody and send something out once we get a final date. The other thing we're waiting on now, we have one interventional cardiologist, Dr. Gary Idlecheck, and he is our full-time interventionalist. And there are 3 physicians from Albany Med who are in the process of finishing their credentialing to be back up for him. So we've gotten all the cath lab staff and nursing staff and everybody up and going. We've been actually training and doing drills since the fall, but we've been doing them more frequently now. So actually once a week, and this week we've been doing them almost on a daily basis. So we've reached out to all of Saratoga County EMS, from Malta to Community and Boston Spa and Saratoga Fire and all of the other outlying ambulances to do testing and to transmit the EKG to the ED. And it's coming to the physician's computers and our secretary and our charge nurse, and the EKG will show up. They'll click on it and it'll show the EKG on the physician computer. They will at that point then call a code STEMI if indeed it is one, and then we'll activate it with the team. So we've been drilling those things. Tomorrow we're going to have a drill that is going to involve actually then bringing a patient in, kind of a simulated patient, but we're going to be doing a drill tomorrow all the way through down to the cath lab, and then the next step is one down at Albany Med. So we're getting closer, and we'll certainly keep you all informed once we get a very final date, but it's getting close. And then we've been very involved with the Mission Lifeline program, which is really looking at best practices. So Saratoga, knowing that we will be going up, with the STEMI program, we've been looking at data. They've been looking at all of our times from arrival to EKG and EKG to physician and time the physician reads it, and all of that's being reviewed at the meetings. We meet once a month with Dr. Feldman and the team, so that's exciting. So there'll be more to come on that. I think that's what we have for Saratoga. Schenectady County?
Nothing to report.
All right, under new business. Tim, you had a couple of things you want to talk about?
A couple things. The first one, I come to the council again with a small expenditure request. We are updating our training material, and the council was gracious enough several months ago to allow us to upgrade some of the soft and hard goods back there. Over the last month and a half or so, we discovered that some of our suction units aren't doing that good, and they're croaking. And I come to the council tonight to ask for $1,500 and change to purchase 3 new suction units for our training program.
A motion?
I'll make a motion to purchase.
Second?
I'll second.
Before this goes to a vote, if we could discuss, would it be possible, Tim, and I don't know if you've explored it, either working with Albany County Sheriff's Department or with the town of Colony, so that, say, you buy two that then become redundant units for that agency, so then when you need three, you can just borrow them back? So we have some cost sharing on the expensive equipment like that, and then ultimately things like monitors and other stuff we may need.
That never occurred to me, but I'm not sure how that would work when we're in a pinch and I need to borrow a unit that may be in use somewhere else.
I put it out as an idea, if it hasn't been explored, just maybe as a possibility of doing it. If not for the suction units that you may need tomorrow, maybe this is something we just need to buy. But in the future, for equipment that otherwise sits on our shelf and might do well in some type of equipment sharing situation.
Sure, I can appreciate that. I'll definitely look into it. In the meantime, I would ask for approval to purchase the 3 units if that would be okay.
I know you have to be a little careful when you go for your being re-credentialed by the state. They don't want you to have a lot of equipment that's actually on ambulances being used. So you have to be real careful with that. Because, if you go down the road, make sure you're aware of that, that's all.
No, I think that's certainly something that's important for us to remember. But I think the other thing that's important for the state to recognize and for us to highlight to them is that having a bunch of equipment just outdating on our shelves, so it ultimately gets thrown away after 10 years of really doing nothing except watching the batteries expire, just doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense for us, and frankly, it doesn't make any sense for you guys either, Jeff. So if, if
Ours
there's.
doesn't sleep and rot. Ours get worn out, to be honest with you.
Right, but the whole thing, it's just a question of how you can do that, right? So I would expect that the ones you're using in the course are the ones that would go in the street if you needed an extra one, right?
Has
And
never happened.
somehow you would have a rotational process.
Dedicated to the training center, no, that's not.
You have to keep training center money for the training center.
Correct. You can't do that.
You have to,
That's for the reimbursement.
yeah, the controller comes in and banks if it's not labeled.
I tried to put it delicately, but it really will spank you.
If there's no reasonable way to do to do shared services and save money on this, then what we need to do is just spend the money each time. That's what we gotta do. Goal is to make sure that our training is, intact and that we're providing the best training we can.
Yeah, those units get used, and they're older units. They just basically reached the end of their useful life, so.
So every
Is this
December
an
we
initial
put stuff-
requested or second motion?
Every December we load up on good stuff.
I don't know where we stand with it, right? I don't know where we stand with it. It's a second, or it's,
I make a motion that we get it. Here.
No, it was motion was seconded, which is why there was discussion, so now it's ready for vote.
All in favor? Opposed?
Me too.
There's another item on there, and I'm gonna turn the floor over to Dean Romano. As probably most of you know in this room, whenever a paramedic needs to establish online medical control, it comes through a recorded system that is located in the back storage room here at Remo. We've come to rely on that system, the recorded line. As Doc Daly and some other people could attest, there's probably a handful of paramedics in the region right now that can credit their jobs to recordings that were made on that line. That line is supported through our annual fees. When Kenny Martin logs on to record a signal, that agency is assessed $1.10 charge. All that money goes to supporting that system, and it's not a cheap system, and it's not an up-to-date system. It's antiquated. That system also has reached the end of its useful life, but Dean Romano will explain to you that and present some options for upgrading or replacing that system.
So our current system is an Altigen first generation system that is over 15 years old. 8 years ago, when I started working here, it was had already been retired, and they were no longer making parts for it. At this point, it's still running Windows Vista operating system, and therefore there is no update for software whatsoever for it. And so we've been keeping it going over the last 8 years, I'd say, with constantly servicing it. We've had a couple crises where it's been down. The last one we were down for 3 days because it relies on multiple vendors to provide service. Internet comes from one vendor, telephone system through another vendor, and the actual equipment through a third vendor. And so that has also complicated the maintenance and repair and continued service to the thing. So as we come to the realization it's gonna have to be replaced with something, I've investigated a couple different options to replace it. The first one is another system just like it, only it's an up-to-date system where we would buy equipment, host it here in the building, and can, bring in phone service, bring in internet service that we currently have, and that would have a very high initial investment, about $25,000, and our monthly ongoing fees would be about $1,200 a month. A second option was with a hosted system, where instead of bringing the equipment here in-house, we would host it someplace else. A technology company would host it for us, do the maintenance for it. However, we would still own it, we'd still be responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance for it. Again, the initial investment is about $20,000 there, and still an ongoing $1,200 a month fee. And then on top of that, we'd have to actually find a new phone system for here in the building. And finally, as I'm investigating this, we had a major crisis, and it was down for 3 days. And because we have multiple vendors, the vendors don't play well with each other, and we were down for 3 days because we were just not a high enough priority. And so we decided we really need to investigate a single vendor that can do everything. And we also would like to advance our technology. We'd like to go fiber optic. And so we found a cloud-based system that would be completely fiber optic, and it actually is much less expensive than the other systems. So this cloud-based system that is available to us is through First Light. It's the only fiber optic company that's currently in the area. The initial investment is about $7,000 for just actual phones here in the office, and a couple computers that would support the things that we could access that for, to retrieve the recordings. All the recordings and everything are off-site and maintained by a computer and by First Light. And that's, it's gonna take about $7,000 for initial investment and about $500 for monthly fees. And so, going forward, we have to do something, and actually we need to do something relatively soon, because the system is at the point where we need to do some more maintenance, and when we do that maintenance, I'm not sure we're gonna find the parts that we're gonna need to keep the thing running. And so that is my report, and
Was the First Light 500 a month or 900 a month?
the First Light is $900 a month, and the initial investment is $7,000, about $7,000.
I thought you said 5, that's
If I could just add a couple things, there's some opportunity here with this new system, because right now that system in the back has a certain finite number of extensions, hospital extensions, MD extensions. The First Light system here allows us opportunity to expand those extensions as we need them, which makes it extremely attractive, not only to us, but to the people in Mountain Lakes that we've been talking to, the people in